So, Grandma Sally, let's just start with your name, where you're from, how old you are, and where we are right now.
Okay, my name is Sally Garcia, and I was born in 1932 here in San Antonio on the south side on Fredericksburg Road. I think that's the name of the Fredericksburg Road? No, I don't think I know the name of the street that I was born, but it was in South San Antonio. Well, it was in San Antonio, but in the south part of San Antonio, towards Kelly Air Force Base. And I'm the eldest of 6 children, and I forgot what else.
Yeah, and where are we right now?
Oh, right now we're in my kitchen. We're here in San Antonio, and we're on the northwest side of downtown San Antonio, Texas.
How long have you lived here in this house where we're in the kitchen?
Very close to 50 years. We moved out here in 1972 when they finished the house, and we were able to move in, and we have always had such a great time here in this house because I grew up during the Depression, and most of the things that I did get was because I had to really work for it, and somehow this was just something from heaven, to have a nice house, a wonderful husband, and beautiful children.
How many kids do you have?
2 girls and 1 boy.
With I forgot to mention this, so sorry about that, but I'll ask the questions, but then in your response, if you can kind of repeat my question, because I'm going to cut out what I said. So if I ask how many kids do you have, rather than just saying 3 kids, say I have 3 kids. Mm-hmm. So I'll just...
Shall I go ahead and repeat that?
Mm-hmm.
The good Lord has been very good to us, and we have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. And the oldest one is a girl, and I believe my husband wanted a son. So we had another child, and she was a girl. So there I was, waiting and waiting. And the third one was a boy, and I was very happy because I was afraid I would have to have 10 little girls before I had a son.
That's great. And since I don't want to laugh or say anything over you, I won't say much while you're talking, but I'm obviously listening. So I was just gonna say that. And what are your kids' names?
The name of our kids are their first name. The oldest one is Deborah Lynn Sigloff. The second one is Catherine Lorraine Garcia. She married a Garcia. And our third child is Daniel D. Garcia, and he is my only son who is in prison.
When did he go to prison?
He went to prison in, I believe, 2002, and that was a terrible, terrible thing that happened because my son is innocent. He never did any of the things that the things that they said in class in the courtroom.
How has Uncle Danny going to jail 18 years ago. How has that affected you?
I have had the feeling that he would be released very soon in the beginning because he was innocent. And then as time went by, it just didn't happen, and I missed him more and more each year. And we were visiting him every weekend before this coronavirus thing came up. And then when they closed it down and he wasn't able to get any visitors, then he would call us. And so we only communicate by telephone. And he calls us every day now, which is wonderful, because in the beginning he could only telephone us about once a week. They weren't allowed, and they have a shortage of telephones there at that unit where he is in prison. Apparently they have had more telephones put in, and they are letting them use them more than they did before. So we keep up with how he is, what he's doing, and he's keeping up with what we're doing and how much we love him, and we hear him on the phone, and it's just almost like visiting, but it isn't the same. But it's certainly better than it was before.
Do you think about him every day?
Yes, every morning before I get up, I pray for the Lord to be helping him to do the right things for the right reasons, and for him to come home. And the same thing at night before I go to sleep. I pray that everything is okay, and that tomorrow would be another day that we would be able to talk to him, although we can't see him because of the coronavirus right now. But normally we would go once a week, and it would take us 2 hours to drive to Beeville from San Antonio, and then we would visit for 2 hours, and then of course drive back 2 more hours. So we would go on a weekend, like either Saturday or Sunday. We go to church on Saturday, so we go to visit him on Sunday usually.
And who would go down there? Who would drive down there with you?
In the beginning, we were taking his 2 sons because they were very small children, and it was just wonderful for him to see his little boys growing up. And we went so often there at that same unit that the people that run it would say, "Here come the twins," and that's how they were talking about them being there every week. And they grew up, and when they became 18 years old, since only 2 adults were able to visit at any one time, they were not able to go with us, and so we had to stop going, and they give them a chance to go every other weekend together. And of course by then they were young men in their 20s, and they would say, "Here come the twins," and they always called them twins because they were a year apart. And they just loved seeing their dad. And that's the reason why we would only see him every other week instead of every week. And every once in a while, if one of them couldn't go, then I would go with the one that could go, and he would drive down there for us. For me, I never did drive down there. It's a little bit too far for me to drive, so I would get him to drive me, or my husband and I would drive down there. But only two of us could visit. And two girls that couldn't swim drowned, and one of the priests that went to try to save those two girls, he drowned. And so my mother said, "See, you would have been in the canoe and you'd be dead by now." And sure enough, that's the way she always thought about. You don't do things that you can't do because you could get into trouble. And that's the feeling that I grew up with. The answer is no, you can't go out of town. The answer is no, you can't join the Air Force. No. Came home one day, my girlfriend and I, we were in high school and we wanted to join the Air Force. And we came home and announced, we want to join the Air Force. Everybody was joining something. And they didn't let me out of the house for 3 months. So, needless to say, I didn't join the Air Force. That's funny. Instead, I got a civil service job. And I could see the people coming and going that were in the service. But I wasn't. And then when I met this wonderful Marine, it was love at first sight.
And who is that?
My husband.
How long have y'all been married?
68 years. I met him the last day of 1951 at my cousin's, his father's birthday party. And he had called me the day before and said that I had to come to the party because there was somebody that he wanted me to meet. And I said, "Oh, Alvin, I know all those guys you went to school with, and and I know because we went to the same school from elementary school through high school." He said, No, you don't know this one. This is one you have not met." I said, "Well, okay." So the whole family went to the party, the birthday party for my uncle. And 7 o'clock came along and nobody showed up. And then 8 o'clock, nobody showed up. And I said, "Hey, what happened?" And at 9 o'clock, in walks this good-looking young man that I had never seen before in my life. And he was the nicest person I had ever seen in all these other years that I would go out with somebody and, "Nah, I'm not marrying. Nah, I'm not marrying." And then he came along and I thought, wow, where have you been all my life? And from then on, we just were really close friends. We were engaged in June of that year, and then we got married in November of that year, which was 19, what did I just say? 52. Yeah.
And y'all have built quite a life together over the past 68 years.
Oh,
right?
yes. It has been such a wonderful marriage because he's such a hard worker, and he had a good job, and he used his GI Bill at Kelly Air Force Base as a machinist, and he was the first person to use the GI Bill from Korea to use it, and he graduated from that. So he was at the top of his whatever he could do at Kelly Air Force Base, and it still wasn't what he wanted, because he wanted to do something better because he was at the top of his career, at that point, and he was 25 years old. And he said, I am going to go to school full time because I want to be a dentist. And I go, oh my gosh, we're going to starve to death. I hadn't seen a dentist but twice in my life. During the Depression, you didn't see doctors or well, you couldn't afford it. And so you just, kept your teeth clean and you kept your body safe so that you could afford, because my parents didn't have the money to pay for doctors and all that. And so I didn't have that feeling towards the better educated people that would go to college and to do other things other than just what came along. And that's what we decided to do. I was working and he was working part-time, and he was going to college because he had gone also to the school I went to, which was they didn't prepare you for college. It was a vocational school. They prepared you to go to work after you graduated. And so he went to the junior college in San Antonio and got all the information, all the classes that he needed so that he could go to a university and to be and they only accept so many number of people at for the year at the dental school. And in San Antonio we didn't have a dental school, so he had to go to Houston. That was the closest dental school that was available. And he did very well in his junior college chemistry. In fact, in chemistry, I think one of the tests that he made such a good grade, he broke their numbers, and they're still talking about that when people are taking chemistry over at San Antonio College. And that's kind of funny because they go, what? Somebody's made a better grade. Anyway, he did go to college, and at first we thought, well, I'll stay in San Antonio with the 3 kids, and I can stay with my mom and dad, and he can just come and visit us on the weekends or whenever he has time while he's in dental school. Well, that didn't go very far because the kids missed their daddy, and I missed him too. So we moved to Houston, and I got a transfer from Kelly Air Force Base in San Antonio to NASA in Houston, and I worked in procurement at Houston at NASA, and that was a real eye-opener for me, and I really enjoyed that job. And my husband was doing very well in dental school, and he was working part-time in the evenings doing the dental work for other doctors, other dentists. And I would go by and pick up the prescriptions, and then I would take it home, and he would work in the evenings to make different crowns and different things that he was learning how to do. And they were very happy to have him do that. And so we earned a little bit of money there besides my paycheck, and I would deliver the whatever he made the night before, and then go on to my job. And by then Debbie the oldest girl was in junior school, and I was carpooling, and so they would pick me up, and on the times that I was driving, because we would take turns in driving, there were about 4 of us in a car, and Debbie was she was learning how to play the violin, and I didn't find out till many, many years later after she was grown up, and she didn't like it. And one day she had forgotten it, and we had to come back. My whole carpool had to come back to pick up the violin because we would drop her off on our way to work. And it was just something that those people were so nice because they knew that my husband was going to school and that I was working and our children, were all doing all the things that they were supposed to do. They were very, very good 3 little kids that, were happy to do what they had to do. And that's how we got through the 4 years, 4 years that he was in dental school. And then we moved back to San Antonio, and he opened up his own office, and I helped in that for a while. And it has been a very, very good thing that we get what we want. And we had always wanted certain things, and we always got them. And that's why when Danny was convicted, that was the first time that anything like that had happened. We didn't know any lawyers. We didn't know anybody in that what's the word for that type of like lawyers. I mean, we didn't know any lawyers. We didn't know anybody because we had never had any reason to ever go to court on anything. We always did what we had to do. And we didn't pass any red lights, and we didn't get tickets. And life was just, you do what you have to do, and it works out. But this didn't work out. And that's why every day I kept thinking, this is a nightmare, I'm going to wake up. But it's already been 20 years. And I'm just praying that I live long enough to see him come home. The fabric, shall I start over? From the very beginning that he was in prison, he was his job was to make T-shirts, I believe. Anyway, it was sewing, and so he learned how to put things in the different pieces that he had to sew together. Each thing that he had to be, put in a certain place so he could just grab it, sew it, and grab it and sew it and all that. And so what he was doing it, and he was very quick about it, and he was very good about it. And he would finish this, whatever they would give him, and he would finish it sooner than anybody else. And then they looked around, and he was just sitting there, and they wanted to know how come they hadn't given him as much work as they had given them. And she said, he got the same amount. You guys just don't know how to do it like he does it, because he's got it to where he does it, and he does it because he's got it set aside, and he knows what he's doing, and zip, he finishes quicker. And so he always tried to, whatever job he got, he tried to do it the best he could, and it showed up. Yeah. And it
Do you think if Uncle Danny ever went to jail, would Danny still be here with us?
I really believe that if Danny had not gone to jail, his son would still be alive. I really believe that. Yes. Those two kids were, I don't know the word for it, but it was had such a horrible life when they were with Laura that we had to take Daniel to the emergency room when they went on vacation because she wouldn't take them to the hospital, and he was already bleeding, and it wasn't something that just happened, that day, this was something that had been going on for months, the doctor said. And when she got back from that, because they had left them and gone on a vacation, they never took them on vacation. They'd always leave them with somebody, some visitor. And she was so angry when she walked in. She was angry at me because I took him to the hospital. And you should have seen, because she's a doctor, and you'd think the Queen of England had walked in. Everybody was just wondering, what is she going to do? And yet, we didn't do anything against her because we were afraid to lose the children. And once you lose the children, then why does it matter whether you get even with her or whether you do anything that she's, stop that? But we did what we could, and that's how your mom was able to adopt them, because they wouldn't let us, Grandpa and I, because they said that we were too old, and that by the time that Daniel graduated from high school, they said, not even college, that we would already be in a wheelchair or on a, I forgot what you call those things that they put people on that can't walk anymore, or can't, do anything for themselves. And to this day, and not so much anymore now that Daniel is dead, I'd like to take Ian over there to one of those lawyers that said that I was going to be dead by then. And I'll say, hey, I'm still very much alive. And those kids were not treated properly. They were so thin. They were abused. And we have pictures. That makes me cry. To see the picture of them so thin and so malnutrition and having to have gone through so much hell. But we couldn't do anything. And I was so happy when your mother was able to adopt them, because they would not let us adopt them. So your mother kept them from getting killed. And Ian did really well because his personality is quite different. But I think Daniel just couldn't take it anymore. I don't know. I have no reason to say that, or no reason to think that, because he never said anything to me. I always saw his best side, and he always seemed to be very happy. And he would say things like, "Grandma, I got an increase in my salary, and I got I don't know what he got else. He got something else," and he goes, "I guess I'm doing a good job because they didn't hire me just because I'm related to the family." And I just had to laugh on that one, because I had to tell him, of course, you are doing the right thing, and you're doing it well, and you're very smart, and you're very hardworking and all that, and they're very glad for you to be one of their employees. They didn't hire you just because you're related.
Do you think Danny ever saw himself how everyone else did?
I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking, because he was always way ahead of me thinking before I could catch up with. I mean, he was just before a few, I guess, days or weeks, I don't know how long, he was reading this thick book that looked more like a dictionary than just a regular book, and it was Spanish, and he wanted to learn Spanish, and so he was reading that. Now, a person that doesn't want to keep on living, they wouldn't go through that much trouble. They would take it easy. They would, drink more beer or something. Yeah. But he was a hard worker. But we didn't know what he was thinking. We didn't know how hard it was for him when he had gone through what he went through. And I think because he was 24, he was worried about what would he do when he got to be 26, and he would have to be pretty much on his own as far as his medical assistance would be. Although he had plenty of money, and he had plenty of everything, because he didn't waste. Ian would buy stuff that he didn't really need, but not Daniel. Daniel was always wanted to do the right thing for the right reasons. Yeah. I'm so glad that Ian found that real nice girl, because that made him happier. And as long as it doesn't interfere with his schoolwork and both of them graduate, that'll be good.
I think Danny he had his family, he had us, but I think he felt like he didn't have friends, and I think he wanted a girlfriend, and I think he felt like he never was going to have that.
Yeah, I got that same feeling. He was kind of afraid of the opposite sex. Well, girls can be mean. I mean, just because they're girls doesn't mean that they're going to be good girls. You have to find them. Yeah. And then you have to find somebody that is good, but not lets anybody walk all over her. You know what I mean? Because she has to be brave in order to be a wife. Yeah. Because after all, she's giving up her family for this other family and for this person of the opposite sex. I always had that feeling when the going got hard, that I wasn't going to give up. It was just, you just work harder. And there were times when he was in dental school that I would do the laundry, and I would wash dishes and cook, and the kids were growing up and all that, and they had homework they had to do, and Grandpa Dan was doing some of the work for the dentist. He'd come home and do his whatever he had to learn and all that, and then he'd start working on and being a machinist, he's just really good at it. And the kids, we always told them that their father was doing this extra work so that he could earn more money, so that they could get better of everything. Better clothes, better school, better whatever. Not just barely getting by. In other words, there was no depression at that time. It wasn't like when I was growing up and everybody was going through this terrible depression. The people in Oklahoma, and they couldn't get enough rain or something, they moved to California. But the Texans here in San Antonio, they didn't drop everything and leave. They just did the best they could with what they had. And eventually they did better. The kids were growing, and the kids were helping, and the kids weren't they were a blessing instead of the opposite. And the more kids you had, the more money that everybody could make. You know, not a lot of money, but, you know, washing dishes, you get paid. And that's more money than if you don't go out there and wash dishes.
Since Uncle Danny is innocent, if he had done it, would he say that he didn't do it and put the rest of his family through the rest of their lives saying that he's innocent and trying to spend every dollar trying to get him out of jail?
Never. He would never do anything like that.
Could you repeat what I said? Or just 'cause
he would never expect us to do something that wouldn't be true. If he had done it, he would have told us, and then that would have been a completely different situation. But he didn't do it. He wasn't there. We know that he never left the little boys that were there that night. I know that he didn't leave, and there's no way that I will ever change what I feel and what I know, because when he did do things that he shouldn't have done, he would always confess, and we'd tell him, don't you ever do that again, when he was a little kid. And he knew that his father just adored him. The day that he was born, he went around waking up people at 6 o'clock in the morning to tell them that he had a baby boy. And he was just so proud of Danny, and Danny knew that, and that's why that just made him do more of the good stuff, of what he's doing now. Even in prison, he's doing the right thing. He doesn't go around making troubles. He doesn't go around asking for things that, you know, we would have to go through any type of feeling that we wouldn't want to do. He only asks for those things that we know that he needs, or he knows not to like do anything that would hurt us.